Welcome to the CE Pro podcast. I'm Executive Editor Arlen Schweiger. Senior Editor Bob Archer welcomes back his audio guys this week, and one of their companies is under new ownership. Alex Camara offers insights into AudioControl's recent acquisition by AAMP Global before he and guest Steve Silberman of Savant and Paul Bochner of Electronic Concepts delve into whole house audio systems and outdoor audio trends in this week's episode. As always, be sure to subscribe to CE Pro's YouTube channel and hit that like button on our videos, or subscribe to the CE Pro podcast on Apple and Spotify and leave a review.
Hi, I'm Bob Archer with CE Pro Magazine, and we're back for another edition of the Audio Guys podcast for CE Pro. We have Paul, we have Steve, and we have Alex, our audio trio. Kind of like Rush, maybe, or ZZ Top. I don't know who's playing bass.
We're the audio triumvirate.
Yeah. In this week's this edition of the Audio Guys, we're going to look at a few topics. One being, since Alex is here, it would be remiss if we didn't talk about this, but AudioControl a few weeks ago announced its acquisition. And so to elaborate on that, Alex, could you provide some details or some insight on AudioControl's acquisition?
Yeah, no, it was a great timing for us. We were acquired by a technology company called AMP Global, good financed company, and for us it was really an opportunity to continue to really push forward on the strategy that we've been following for the last 10 years, and just new technology, growing the business, being able to be a great partner to all of our dealers in the marketplace. The home business for us is a key strategic opportunity, as you know. We've really developed that a lot in the last few years, and it's all systems go. I mean, nothing changes. All our engineering continues, all of our work continues, and actually, what really the AMP company bring to us is the ability to accelerate in our growth plan. They have great resources when it comes to supply chain, which, as we know today, is a major issue for all of us. So they have great supply chain facility. They have great operations support. They have additional technologies that we can use both in our car business, particularly where they're focused, as well as in some of the home business. And they're just a very good strategic partner to have on board with us. So nothing's changed. I'm here. I still, fully engaged in doing what I do every day, which is making good sound great. Their culture is very much like ours. It's very dealer focused, very dealer centric. They love the home business. They like the commercial business that we do. Nothing has really changed. I mean, from a systems point of view, we'll get added access to even more sort of effective systems and how we manage, as I mentioned, supply chain and operations and so on. And it's all going. And particularly, I think, in the residential and the commercial side of what we're doing. In this call, for instance, they're very excited about being able to diversify their business and support us on the home strategy. So it's good news. It's great. Good partners. Leaving us alone to basically push forward on our plans and where we go.
Before we move on to our next topic, could we summarize what this means to dealers?
But to dealers, I think it doesn't change anything. Everything we're doing is, from a program point of view and everything else, is consistent and the same. I think where it helps dealers, again, as I mentioned just now, is particularly in supply chain, because supply chain, AMP Global have a universal, a global supply chain facility. They're able to help us in more effective ways to get parts and develop new products. So that's probably the biggest impact, is that dealers will see greater parts availability from us, and we do pretty well because we're building in most of our products here in the United States anyway. So we're, as we've talked about before, we're flying parts in, we're flying product in smaller amounts, because we actually manufacture the majority of our home products here in Seattle. So nothing.
Where are they based, Alex?
They're based in Florida. So they're based in Florida. So they're U.S. company, strongly backed. Great people. They've been out here already to come and see us and work with our team. They like the manufacturing we do here. I think it's a real, one of the interesting things in the industry today is a lot of companies are looking to bring manufacturing in some element back to the US. So they like the opportunity to have US manufacturing here. And that's a big win for us and a big win for them. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Alex. I think moving on.
If anyone has questions about this, any dealers, everyone has my number, just let me know. So.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Paul. So if anyone wants to follow up with Alex about details and what it means to their business, they can follow up with you directly.
Yeah, but and again, it's all systems go, no change. We're just pushing forward on the plan. So.
Oh, okay, great. A couple of things I think I'd like to focus on for this episode, since it's spring and it's warm out, particularly if you're someone like me who lives in the Northeast, or even out in the mountains like Steve does, is the fact that spring means warmth and people are thinking about doing more things around their house, maybe even outdoors. So focusing on whole house systems and maybe getting more performance from a whole house AV system or whole house audio system. What are some of the ways that dealers can provide their homeowners with a fuller range system to add low frequencies to these systems? Steve, we'll start with you.
Are you thinking inside or outdoors? I mean, outside. Paul, you tell me. Outside's become the next room in the home, hasn't it?
We'll start indoors and we'll work our way out. How's that?
Sure. So subwoofers, for me, a subwoofer in a system or a subwoofer in a zone is essential. And in fact, I prefer to have at least two subs in a room, right? If you put one sub in a room, it's going to be good in some areas where you sit, and the other areas you're going to lose bass. And what we found, what the research has shown, there's been a lot of publications that have printed this. At least two subs that are placed equal but opposite corners. So maybe it's in the front left and the right rear will give you a more equalized bass in the room. And sometimes you need four subs. So I typically like to lean on some sort of room modeling tools. There's a ton of room modeling tools where if I punch in the cubic dimensions of the room, it's going to show me what the modes of the room are, where the peaks in the room. But a lot of those software tools, as I place subs, it's going to give me predictive analysis and show me how the subs in room frequency response is going to be. So oftentimes when I'm working with an integrator that's asking for advice on subwoofer placement, I'll pull up something like Room EQ Wizard. I'll go into Tools and Room Simulator, and I'll put in the dimensions and place the subs and move the subs around. And when I think I've got it dialed in, I can print a copy of that and provide it to the dealer. And the dealer gets to use that when they're making a presentation to a client. Because Paul, I'd imagine Paul, you spec everything right. And I'm sure you run into situations where, well, no, you've got a great reputation and you're not afraid to come in and tell a client, hey, look, you need 3 pairs of speakers in this room and you need either 4 or 8 subwoofers. And they may be getting a competitive bid. And the other guy's saying two speakers and 1 sub is going to do it. And if I can give you data sheets that show what the in-room response, what the SPL is going to be, what the overall performance is going to be, if you can use that as part of your presentation, that I'm sure helps the customer make an informed decision.
Absolutely. Yeah. And they all know what bass is. They all know that's what they feel, even if they're not audiophiles, they understand that they need that impact, whether it's 10 subs in a room or 1 sub in a room, just to fill the space. Everyone knows what bass is, no matter how, ignorant they are to the audio world. Right. So it is our job to do it. And you're absolutely right. If you make the educate or you show them and you educate them, this is why we do subwoofers. This is why we do 2 versus 3 or 4. I think a lot of times you actually look more impressive to a customer than you look like you're potentially trying to sell them things that they don't need. And also too, we're talking indoor, right? Since Bob said we could start with indoor. Most people don't even know, and a lot of integrators don't know what room mode is, and you end up you can see my room here, even with all the money we have invested in here, there's a 40 hertz suck in this room. And, there are ways to fix it. There may not be ways to fix it. These are the kind of things that, even though it's not at this level, we should be trying to help our customers understand and help end users understand, why to do it.
I think I would add to Paul's point. I mean, we've seen certainly the RS, subwoofer range that we sell, one of the fastest or one of the biggest growing categories in the last year. There's a resurgence in bass, certainly, as you say, Paul and Steve, in the way that it's configured into projects now. I mean, and particularly not just freestanding subwoofers, but in-wall. A ton of in-wall opportunity on subwoofers. The RS is we sell the 500 watt and the 1000 watt. We've seen I think Candy sales probably double in the last 12 months, and that's really down to dealers, I think, recognizing the opportunity to spec in separate subwoofers, in an aggressive fashion, as you guys both said. Music is not music without bass. Without bass, it's not music. So.
We're seeing the same trend. We make a series of architectural subwoofers called RCC. They're a reactance canceling sub, so they have an equal number of drivers moving in an equal opposite direction. So the benefit of that is when I install it in the wall, when I mount it into the studs, there's no mechanical energy that transfers from the woofer's movement into the cabinet and into the stud. So it's a pretty silent. All I'm going to hear is the acoustical purchase between the surface of the driver and the air pressure in the room. But and they're small. And so what we've seen though, in the last 2 years, especially, is just a huge rise in subwoofer sales and subwoofer specifications across the board. It seems
I think invisibles are driving that too, right? We're
Absolutely.
seeing so much more demand for invisible and small aperture, or even just small, maybe not small aperture, but small speakers, that the need for subs is just, growing because of that.
And home theater surround is driving that too. I mean, Paul, how many systems do you design today that are a .1 sub versus .2 or .4?
Yeah, almost none of them. Yeah, almost none.
Nobody's doing almost no one's doing a .1 anymore.
It would have to be a very tiny room or in a very tiny budget to not, squeeze two subs in there.
So bass is the fun part of the music, and it seems to be back.
Agreed.
Let me throw this out to you guys before we move outdoors. Are you guys advocates of training through entities like I think of the Home Acoustics Alliance or THX or CEDIA, who offer all kinds of training, particularly when it comes to sound installation, because there is, particularly in home environments, small room acoustics in lower frequencies are really problematic. You guys advocates of that? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, education is always great. The more our community knows, the more they're armed with in terms of real practical knowledge, the better off we are. The Pro World has done such a great job of this. If I go to JBL Pro or L Acoustics or D&D, they have so much great documentation and engineering tools to help me design a pro audio system so that it has impact. And I think we're starting to see manufacturers starting to shift in that same direction in our space.
Yeah, I think as integrators, we lost a lot of them. We got so heavy into automation where all of us were audio guys that all the new crop are just, they don't understand audio, right? It's just throw speakers, and there's not really thought around it anymore. So yeah, I mean, I think CD is probably doing some work on that. I think the manufacturers do a great job. Some of the manufacturers are really good about trying to help people understand, or help integrators understand, like, this is why you need 4 speakers. This is why you need multiple subwoofers. This is why you don't place a speaker in the corner for, this type of speaker, et cetera. I think we take over so many projects where we walk in and we look at the setup or the design, and they were set up to fail the minute the project was sold. It's not the right equipment for the job, or it's not the right equipment for the room. And like Steve said, I'm all for it. Whose responsibility is to try and, get the world there? I don't know. It's tough. There's a lot of different methods of how to get this done, and a lot of people agree and disagree on it. So I'm not sure the best way.
I mean, there's a lot of people, as you just talked about, sort of dabbling into how to advise the manufacturers. Clearly, we do the same thing. Many others do, in taking responsibility to help, educate our dealers and our customers, whether it's a knowledge-based type activity or whether it's some other way. So that's becoming more. And then you have companies in the acoustic world like Direct, who are doing direct bass management and doing a ton of information about bass management on their websites. And there's others like that as well. So.
Yeah. So to wrap that up, right? Savant's taking a leadership role in that. We're creating a lot of documentation now around speaker placement. We actually have an acoustical tool. If Paul came to me and said, I have a room that's 26 by 18 with 10-foot ceilings, and I want to use your micro aperture speaker, it can calculate the total number of speakers you need, and it actually calculates their axis, their X and Y, where they need to go, so that you get the best acoustical placement of those speakers. And then I can go and use something like Room EQ Wizard, their simulation tool, to generate where subwoofer location should go. And so we're doing more proactively to get that message out to our dealers, that they can lean on us as a resource to help them design systems and create the documentation for it.
Yeah, I think a lot of companies are now providing that sort of help. I know Meridian is, Bowers and Wilkins does. A lot of companies are doing that. L Acoustics, I believe, does that. Meyer Sound does it. Those pro companies. Alex, could I ask you, I'm going to put you on the spot here, about StudioSix Digital. It's a brand that you're affiliated with, and you have mic pre's, you have calibration mics, there's downloads for RTAs and SPL meters, and a variety of tools. What's AudioControl's alliance or partnership with that company?
No, great question. StudioSix is certainly a leader in that field. StudioSix Digital is their full name. It's a small, in effect, technology-driven company, which AudioControl is the distributor for their products, and also works for them on the technology side. So we work on all of the preamp side, the calibration side that they do, all of their products. Actually, we actually manufacture the products for them. We distribute them throughout the world for them. And they're a great technology partner in that work. We take an amount of their technology and actually integrate it into our products. One of the reasons that we acquired an ownership stake in that company was to be able to have that exclusive ability to be able to take that technology, integrate it into various products, be able to manufacture the preamps and the other products that they sell, and take that into the dealer. So our dealers are benefiting from that today. Sometimes in an invisible fashion, and that it's in our products. Other times it's actually a product that's under the StudioSix Digital brand, or a product that we manufacture ourselves that we use some of their technology for. But they're one of those sort of hidden companies behind the scenes of audio that just does a great job. Andrew Smith is sort of the head technologist there, and just does an amazing job. And not just in products, but also in apps as well. And if you go to their website, you can pick up their apps, a ton of bass management apps, a ton of room calibration apps at a very, very good price. It's a download from the Apple App Store or the Android App Store. So yeah, so no, definitely a good, strong company in that field. Yeah.
Okay, moving outdoors now. As Steve, you had alluded to this a few minutes ago about outdoor audio being extremely hot, and the trend towards adding subwoofers and multiple arrays, speaker systems, 70 volt and whatnot. What trends exactly are you and Savant seeing in the outdoor audio space?
Well, I mean, the outdoor experience, and Paul, I mean, you're in the field, so you tell me if this is jives with what you're saying. We're seeing that people are living in the backyard, so it's their kitchens are more expensive and nicer in their backyard than they are in their house. There's outdoor video. I've seen guys building. They're taking outdoor tiling and building video walls, and it could be anything from line array speakers on either side of that to that in conjunction with landscape speakers. But what's fun about outside is you don't have all the boundary restrictions you have in the home. You don't have to worry about there's no peaks and nulls in the outside world. So if you're placing the appropriate number of speakers and the appropriate number of subwoofers, the impact is just sensational, and it's rich and it's even and it's smooth, and it's just an absolute blast. So we're seeing a lot of different trends outside. We're seeing a lot of 70 volt this year, more so than we've seen in the past. And we're seeing a lot of really interesting systems where people are really loading up on subwoofers in particular. We resell a JBL Pro subwoofer called the 2210, and they're a dual 10-inch subwoofer, and they have just an ungodly amount of impact. They're one of those fast, concussive, not boomy, but concussive kind of subwoofers. And so we're seeing a lot of integrators now that want to place a multitude of those outside, so that if I'm at the barbecue, if I'm at the table, if I'm watching the movie, if I'm walking through the garden, there's impact. We're just seeing a lot of really intelligent placement right now.
I mean, I think just to add to that, I mean, for us, it's been fascinating just in launching, the new CM series that we have. So our first 70-volt series, 2, 3, and 4 channels, it is without doubt the biggest growing category that we're seeing. And, we're literally, we're shipping them daily as fast as we can build them. And a lot of this is really, to Steve's point, gearing up for, the spring, the summer projects that are coming up. And it has been an area for us that we were asked to do this for many years. And we were asked to come in and, to give an alternative to some of the more staple 70-volt products out there. And it's been a massive win just straight. And again, with the full DSP and all we sort of took a different approach in that we didn't just make it for commercial, we made it really more targeted towards residential, so the old cliche resi-mercial is how we sort of took it, and with feedback from the field. So that's, I think I agree with you 100%, Steve. And it's massive. And Paul, I'm sure you see it in your projects.
Yeah, I mean, the more companies that came out with and were pushing towards true landscape, 70-volt landscape systems over the last bunch of years, I mean, it became the mainstream solution. And I mean, you think about, we're in North Jersey, right? So some people have huge properties and some people are paying, $50,000 a year in taxes, and they're right next to their neighbor. So, managing sound in their backyards is still really important, and having the ability to say, hey, I'm going to put a couple of landscape speakers and a couple of subs, but do more of them so that we have the impact at low volume. Now, not only are they getting a better experience, but they're also not pissing off the neighbors, down the entire street. So it just opened us up to a bunch of different solutions, right? It's not just, hey, I can now blast a backyard. It's also, the way I pitch landscape and why I push for it is more that, let's cover the area so that you're not blasting the music, right? When you're out by the pool, you're not blasting these speakers so that you hear it there. Just cover it, make everything nice, clean coverage, a couple of subwoofers so that you get the impact. And no one, I mean, who's going to push back against that if it's in their budget to do it? It's just a better way to go about it. But video outdoors, even video has just been huge outdoors over the last few years. And we're, I'm like you, Bob, we're in the Northeast, right? So, the people here are going to take every advantage they can for the couple of months that they have. And outdoor TV sales have been, I mean, COVID kind of started it again. People were investing more in their homes, right? Just like theaters. But I think outdoor was such an easier way to spend the money. And I mean, come on, 70-volt, you got one wire, you can daisy chain and keep moving and really give people some fantastic solutions with it. So if you're not pushing that, then you're definitely missing the boat and not serving your customers at this point.
Paul, you kind of led me into my next question. And again, we'll take this in two parts. One, we'll look at the outside first. We'll go the exact opposite, and then we'll move our way indoors. But how do you approach designing these systems? And how do you speak with your clients about outdoor audio and whole house audio?
So, I mean, first I always say this, I try to listen, right? And hear what people are actually saying and ask questions and pay attention to the responses they give, and, really just understand what they're looking for. If they have 2 acres worth of property, are they actually using 2 acres of it? Are they just out by the pool, or do they have a terrace? You really have to understand the scope of what they're going to use, and not just say, yeah, let's throw 1 million speakers back here, because that's when you have problems with the neighbors, and, or you're just throwing money at a project for the sake of throwing money at it. I take the approach of, let me understand how you live in this space. And that's true of my indoor pitch or my outdoor pitch. I want to understand how they use the space, and then we design around that, right? There's always got to be a subwoofer outside. I mean, unless it's just a deck and someone's going to have 2 speakers hung under the awning, like, you could get away with some bass. Like, it's a landscape system has to have subs. And typically they have to have more than one. So, I mean, we're designing, the hardest part of it is figuring out how we're zoning, for customers that have a decent size yard. How are we zoning the landscape? Maybe they want the pool to be a different zone than the patio or the grill area. This is really just about understanding how they're going to use the space, and then applying, the same math to each space and figuring out how many speakers you need, how many subs. And I'm sure, Steve or Alex probably also have formulas for their products of like, this is how much I would cover. I would have this many post speakers, this many subs in this kind of area. And I would rely and lean on the people like that to help specify these projects correctly.
Yeah, you're totally right. We look at dispersion patterns, or the client wants to use speaker Y. What's its dispersion pattern and what's its SPL out to certain ranges? And then you can figure out, okay, if we're putting the speakers real close to the client, we need X number of speakers. But if the speakers are going to go on the other side of the garden and then come through the garden and it's 30 feet away and the dispersion pattern is X and the SPL is Y, the resources are there to design spectacular systems.
Steve, since I'm looking at you right now, you're on my screen. In what ways do you help Savant dealers design their whole house systems, including outdoor audio systems?
Well, I mean, if we're starting in the house, I mean, and Paul, I'd be curious what your take is on this, because we work on the same system. We work on Savant systems, right? So when I think about a home, I think about the users. And so how many users do we have, and how many of those users need their own music server? So like in my house, my kids are pretty close in age and they love all the same music. There's no conflict with them music-wise. So there's a Rose and Hugo's music server. And then Carly and I, we have different tastes in music, so we have our own music servers. So we need a total of 3 music servers to cover 8 zones of audio. And from there, defining who gets a music server, and it, to me, is the first priority. And then we can build from there. And in the Savant music app, each of those music servers, each of those can have their own unique user interface. So when I go into my music server, when I go to the home page, what I see in terms of tiling is specific and unique to me. What I see in my carousel of my last 10 favorite things is unique to me. And when Carly sees hers, it's unique to her. So we really try and focus in on who's using music in the home and who needs their own music server. And then it's easy to go from there. And then it's defining how people are going to use the system. So, I'm really big on scenes. And so my son, he's illiterate, but he's supposed to be. He's 4 years old, right? But he can walk up to the Savant. He can walk up to his Savant touchpad, and when he touches it, he can see the scenes, and he can see a picture of himself playing in his room, or he can see a picture of himself playing in the living room, or a picture playing outside. And he just knows if Hugo touches a picture of Hugo in a room, that his music is just going to play there automatically. So I think about when I'm helping an integrator think about how they're going to lay out a system, I think about all the users in the home, and the kids are just as important as the parents. And then for my wife, creating scenes for her where her music player plays in the kitchen is different from when my music player plays in the kitchen or plays in the living room. So I really try and think about how can I make this really, unique and intimate and individual for each of the users, and not overload them with too many music servers and too many options.
Yeah. Less is more with servers.
Yeah, I like really driving the experience through scenes. That's how I like to live.
Yeah, I like the less is more approach. Obviously Steve knows, everybody knows we're a ginormous Savant dealer and fan, and we do a big home. There could be 8 or 9 music server options in there, but it's almost never used, right? It's like, what does this family actually need? And every family wants it uncomplicated, right? They don't need too many options. So 100% I agree with Steve there. Like, first define who needs what, then define where, and how many zones and how you're going to break it up. And then, scenes are a godsend. I joke with customers about scenes. This, what you can do in the Savant app with a scene, like, guys like me 15 years ago were charging $1 zillion in programming to execute those things, right? And like, if you asked me then, I would be like, this is amazing. We can charge, we can do all this custom programming, but I much prefer handing it over to an end user and saying, here, you can do this yourself, and moving on and not having to adjust it. Of course, we can still adjust it for them remotely, mind you. But I love that we're in a place where, we get to choose, how involved we want to be with that. And the client gets to choose how involved they want to be with it. Game changing, scenes have been just game changing for us.
So just to add to that, Bob, the in the Savant app, the homeowner can hit a plus button in the upper right-hand corner and capture whatever. If the homeowner came home and made all of these unique requests and they like the outcome that they just created, they can literally save that as a scene, title that, they can call it whatever they want. They can call it Friday Night Party Night. And then not only that, they can then go into it from their phone. They can pick one of their photos from their phone and load that into their scene. So like I said, when I was referring to my son, right? He drives the house based on images of himself in particular environmental situations. So it's a really cool, very powerful. To me, it's one of our most valuable assets is giving the homeowner the ability to do that. And I don't think Paul wants to drive around northern New Jersey coding scenes for people. That's not with his time.
Definitely not. Nope. The most powerful tool, and it gives me the option to choose how involved I want to be in it, which is fantastic.
Okay, Alex, from AudioControl's perspective, how are you helping dealers spec, design, and install these whole house systems, including outdoor audio, where you have a pretty vast line of processors, amplifiers, 70-volt product. You even have Dante in your products.
Yep. Well, I mean, we're an amplifier company at heart, so we're an electronics company at heart. So that's what we do. And we tend to say, if you want to buy, great whole house amplification, buy from amplifier company. And that's what we do. So we spend a lot of time on, as Steve and Paul alluded to, on the specification side. Our tech support team will work individually with dealers on projects to actually specify a house based on the types of products. I mean, clearly, we've spent a lot of time in the last few years on DSP management. So obviously, DSP is built into all of our director products, all of our CM 70-volt products, and actually increasing that into more products as we go later into this year. And I think one of the things that we've really focused on as well to try and make it a little simpler as well is on the speaker profile partners that we have. So, our director amplifiers, because we don't make speakers, we're speaker agnostic, it allows us to be a friend to all speaker manufacturers. And therefore, we have, hundreds of speaker profiles literally just built into our series. A good example is, Steve with Artisan and those types of speakers and so on, some of the Savant speakers that we have, so they're built into the programming, they're built into the DSP. You can go into a house, select your whole house design where you want DSP amplifiers, where you may not want DSP amplifiers. We want a simpler approach. We tie that into the Savant or other systems, and then you can just choose the zones you're in. I'm in zone 2. I'm going to use these Savant speakers or these X, Y, or Z speakers, and then just literally click onto the programming, and all of this is built into our amplifiers. It's all encoded, it's all encrypted, so it can't be messed around with. It's as the speaker manufacturer intended it to be. So that's a big piece for us in education. We do a lot of training of our integrators, our dealer network, both out in the field as well as in these Zoom days through Zoom as well, which is very effective. We have a lot of videos, but the tech team here is really spends a lot of time helping to spec, and I think that's been one of the sort of things that's helped us grow in the last few years is the tech team here.
The web GUI is fantastic on the AudioControl amps. Like that web GUI is pretty top notch, I will say.
We had an original, thanks Paul. We had an original one for about 7 years, and then we just did this work about 5 years ago just to redesign the whole thing. Took a ton of feedback from people, and we call it the Director 2.0, and pretty pleased with that. Thanks.
Okay, guys, as we close out for today, any closing thoughts that you would like to emphasize on designing whole house systems and outdoor, if you want to speak to outdoor audio? Alex, we'll start with you.
Sure. I think it's one of the areas that still has enormous growth potential. I mean, I think if you can specify, the way that dealers are learning to more and more these days on the whole house side, particularly as Paul alluded to earlier on outdoors as well, combine the two together. So really you've got this one system throughout the house. It's a great, candidly, it's a great margin opportunity. 2, it's a great experience opportunity for the homeowner. And, in the past, we go back, people tended to invest a lot in speakers, and the amplification side in the whole house audio side almost was sort of set aside sometimes. Oh, we'll cut the budget there, because we can cut the budget there. I think we're seeing that change. I wouldn't buy a great speaker unless you had good amplification. That's a big part of what I would say is the theme for us.
I was going to piggyback. That's a great point, Alex. I don't know how many times we've walked into a project where, they have $3,000 pairs of invisible speakers that were sold, and they have 40 watts per channel on some dinky amplifier powering it. I mean, this is true not only of invisibles, it's true of any in-ceiling speakers, and it's especially true of outdoor speakers. Not having the specifications right for power on a speaker, and you've shot yourself in the foot. So I'm glad to hear you say that, Alex, because I am the opposite. I would rather sell a cheaper speaker if I had to and have the amplification in place, because I can always upgrade a speaker, to another model. So
100%.
yeah, super important to pay attention to what you're powering with. I mean, it's especially now, like Alex was saying, all the amplifiers and Savant amps have these too. There's DSP presets, so speaker agnostic. You have the ability to fine tune it. I would add to, I would go back to what I said before. I think the most important thing with designing the indoor and the outdoor is really understanding what the customer's looking for. And once you do, leaning on guys like Alex and Steve and your other partners to try and help put the right products in the right places.
And Steve, any closing thoughts from you, maybe specifically on the user experience and how important that is?
Yeah. These guys covered amplification and the necessity to do that right. I think if you go upstream from that, the other thing is you need to think about zoning, and zones kind of they merge from inside to outside of the house. So you want a system where it's latency free. I want to be able to walk from my kitchen to the mudroom to the back patio, and I want it to be absolutely seamless in terms of its integration. And that's something that we focused on early on when we transitioned from the Matrix to IP audio. We did a lot of research at the time, and we selected an IP infrastructure that guarantees us virtually no latency whatsoever. But you also need to be thinking about services that accompany that. If I'm in the backyard and somebody rings the front doorbell, I want a system where I'm going to have instantaneous interruption. I want to be able to hear the doorbell chime through my outdoor speakers so that I know that somebody's out front, or if there's other service interruptions that I want. So I think it's not just thinking about amplification and speakers and how many speakers, but it's also thinking about how does this interact with the rest of my house, and how to from a room by room basis, how do these seamlessly integrate so I can't tell when I'm moving from one room to the next. So I think there's a lot that goes into it. But I think, with the right planning, you can make a lot of complex things appear very, very simple to the homeowner.
Great point.
Great. I want to thank you guys for taking time out of your day. I know you're extremely busy, and thank you for taking part in the CE Pro Audio Guys podcast.
Thanks for putting it together.
Anytime.
Thank you guys. Have a great day.
Good guys.
You too. Good to see you all.